Welcome to the Emotions Coaching Summit 2024, brought to you by In Good Company, a global coaching training company and founder of the revolutionary Emotions Coaching Practitioner Training. If you're inspired today to continue your journey of emotions coaching, then be sure to check out our website at igcompany.co.uk for full details of that course. For now, we invite you to sit back and enjoy the amazing lineup that we have for you today from our expert speakers who are all leaders in their field. Enjoy!
Welcome everybody to the next session. We have Claire Dale with us today. I'm so excited for this session. Claire is going to be talking to us about coaching with physical intelligence and focusing in on the chemistry of emotions. So over to you, Claire.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. It is really super good to be here. You know, you've been preparing for something for a while, and it's so good when the moment finally arrives. You know, I've been thinking about you all morning and then a little bit yesterday, getting everything together. So here we are. I wondered, seeing as this is a summit about emotions coaching, and you may have sat through, you may have experienced some of the great talks already today. I don't mean sat through, I mean, it's been an amazing day so far. Would you like to just tune in and just locate what is the current emotional state right at this moment, however you like to tune in? What is around in your emotional sphere? Often we look to the body to see what's going on. So a breath, a moment to tune in, and thanks for sharing already in the chat. Please feel free just to get some flow going in the chat. Oh, I'm loving this. Oh, don't you find it that moment where you can just have a second or two makes all the difference? So I'm excited to be here. The sun is shining in Twickenham, which is this now become the spiritual home of physical intelligence. Today, we're talking in this session, really, as you would imagine, about the body, and emotions happen in the body, and they are at the heart of human change. And I think somewhere instinctively, practically, and as coaches, with all the wisdom that you're all bringing today, we know that. So I'd like today to dive in a little bit under the surface, under the skin of the neurochemistry and the neurophysiology of working with emotions. What do we need to know? What helps? How do we coach with emotions from a point of view of neurochemistry and physiology? And why is that so important for processing emotions? Why is coaching with the body important? To be able to work skillfully with the energy that's in the emotions. There's so much energy. That is indeed our main energy source, is how we're feeling, the emotional environment in the body. And how to be credible and effective working with the body and emotions and harnessing the power of these invisible forces. And I think it's also worth saying at the moment that the body doesn't necessarily speak English or French or Ghanaian. It's not a language of words. It's a language of sensation. It's a different kind of language. It's not always easy to interpret. So one of the things we'll do today is add a way of expressing emotional components, sometimes using the chemistry, looking through the lens of the chemistry. Now, earlier today, this morning, in the kickoff session of this day, Joe Wheatley, said, emotions flow. They are designed to move. And those of you that already know me will know that I had a 15-year career as a dancer and choreographer before 21 years ago moving into the corporate world. So as a dancer, that statement that Joe made, emotions flow, they're designed to move. The more we can get a feeling that of movement of emotions, of chemistry in motion, then the easier it is to track what's going on. So we need to be alert for the movement in emotion. And then Zoe said, very wisely, when we don't process emotions, they can become problematic. And I'm guessing many of you, if not all of you, know here that when someone is stuck, a client, someone we're working with is stuck, they're not only stuck cognitively, mentally, but there is a stuckness that goes through the entire emotional and physical system. So this is problematic. If we're stuck, it means that we can't move on and change. So what is going on, and how can we help the unblocking, unsticking of other human beings that we're working with? So at the beginning of COVID, this was 2020, if you remember, in this very room that I'm in here, this kitchen, my business partner, my now business partner, Kevin Chapman, came around. We were both making, as we all did at the beginning of COVID, we were making changes. We had to make changes. No more roaming around the world doing leadership and personal impact work, which was what I was doing most of then. What are we going to do with all the information that's here in this tome, in this book here, and over 21 years of working in the corporate world? What are we going to do? So he said, I think we should just create an amazing course for coaches. He's a great coach. I've been coaching with the body all my life, really. And so that's what we decided to do in this kitchen. And I'm going to open up some of that today. I'd like to give you some tools. I'd like you to take you through a few processes. So I hope you're up for some practical work today. I think that's all the business. So please use the chat. We'll have question time at the end, as with all the other sessions. And please feel free when I show the slides, if we're also doing something practical at the time, remember you've got that slide bar. You can make those slides smaller so we're not dominated by the slides, and see what I'm demonstrating or what we're all doing bigger if you want to put yourselves on gallery view. So make sure you use that. Okay, can we start with an experiment, please, people? Would you do an experiment with me, a physical experiment? Look, I like this. You might have done this with me before, but it just brings certain things to life. I think it's quite fun. See what you think. So what I'd love you to do, just get ready to move your body. Nothing major at the moment. We'll do a bit more major stuff later on in the session. But can you just get ready to use your body to explore? We're just going to get some data from the body. And I would like you, first of all, just to collapse your core. Then just cast your eyes down a little bit. Maybe the head even goes on to one side. Maybe the eyes go a little bit dull, like nobody's home. And then from this body stance, I'd like you to try and have the thought and then say it out loud, if you will, if you've got the privacy to do that. I feel confident and optimistic. Okay, from this body stance, just what's happening when you try and say that out loud and even have that thought. Here we go. I feel confident and optimistic. Try it a few times. I feel confident and optimistic, and just see what's happening. I feel confident and optimistic. So Janice says, I've got a flat tone when I'm in that position. It might be hard to actually energize the voice. What else is happening in that? Okay, so Liz, I don't feel confident and optimistic. I can't have those emotions at that moment. I sound defiant. Yes. Sounds like I'm lying to myself. You yawned, Claire. Yes. So these two systems are not aligning. Very, very simple. Stark message. Can we try the opposite? Those of you that are ready, some of you might still be inputting into the chat, just keeping us moving. What for you would be an expanded body position? I don't know, you may have dodgy shoulders, you don't have to do as I do, but use the principle of opening and expansion. And oh, have you got a spare arm just to take yourself off mute for a minute so we can hear each other? Just pop yourself off mute, everybody. I don't know what's going to happen. Zoom might explode, but I'm sure we'll be fine. And now try and say from this open and expansive body position, I feel depressed and demotivated. Off you go. 3, 2, 1, go. I feel
depressed and demotivated.
I feel depressed and demotivated. Lovely, yeah. And so what's happening there also felt weird, Saskia. Why? What's happening? You can't say it. You can't. Interesting, Helen. You can't say it's harder. You have to force yourself to say those words because the body is not leading. So we learn that the body is leading. What sense do you make of that? The body is having a big influence on how we're feeling at that moment, right? So let's put it all together just so that we're complete. Put the arms in and the whole body. I want you to, you can do whatever you like with the open, expansive position and just, let yourself have this moment of confidence and optimism. I feel confident and optimistic. You might feel a bit silly. There's a whole thing about self-consciousness when working with the body. Sometimes we just need to step over it, but go for it. I feel confident and optimistic. Let yourself have both aligned. How does that feel? Confident and optimistic. Right answer. I love that what you're saying there, Kate P. Physiology affects state and vice versa. This is something we know, but do we use it? Do we give it to our clients? Do we work with it? Now, you're very, I know there's lots of very experienced people here in this group. So what's the difference in terms of open, expansive body posture if you've got fists in the air? What's the emotion of that? And what happens if you turn the palms up like this and have them a little forward? What are the two different emotions? What happens if you move the chest forward, the chin up and the arms back? What are the different, what different emotional state comes from those 3 different open and expansive body postures? So we might think that open, expansive body posture is the key, but in fact, what type of open, expansive body posture? And what we'll discover is that actually when you turn the palms up, you might be in more of a state of acceptance, right? Which would give more of a serotonin, a feel of serotonin. When you're opening the chest, you might have a sense more of optimism, hope, pride. The chest expanding tends to go with those kind of emotional states. And so that might be more connected with oxytocin. So here we're starting to learn the language of the chemistry to help us add to our language around emotions, which are difficult to describe anyway. So many juicy nuances, says Jen. Great. So I'm going to share, just get the slides sharing now so you can see with me some of the things that we're working with and some definitions. And we're going to come back to a fair bit of movement later on in the session. So stop that. I will get there in just a moment. Bear with me, the slide format seems, oh, there it is, got it. I am now with you. Can you see my slides? Just give me a thumbs up, those of you on camera.
Yeah, we can see them.
Good, thank you. So we may think that open, expansive body posture is all about confidence and risk tolerance, and that is one aspect. And this would be a good dose of adrenaline, dopamine, testosterone, these activating chemicals. But as you just discovered, we might be inviting in the chemistry of some other emotional states as well. So in the slouched posture, Many of you will know the term. It's an away response. So the dopamine is dropped. We're perceiving the situation as non-rewarding. We see that in clients when they cover certain terrain in what they're talking about. We're observing. Sometimes we observe that physical retreat. And it also will go along with a rise in cortisol because of that lack of reward. Means maybe I'm not safe, or I don't feel great about this situation. I'm feeling more resistant, or and so on. And then in the expansive chemicals are testosterone, serotonin, oxytocin too. So we're getting the idea. And here is what we're doing here. Physical intelligence, the ability to strategically manage, detect first and strategically manage the chemistry of the body to unlock enhanced performance. And in our curriculum, we work on strength, flexibility, resilience, and endurance. We're looking at energy, how our emotional and physiological state, the state of the entire organism, supports cognitive function. Very interesting. Coherence, creativity, the emotion of motivation, the emotion of trust. How can we create these, and how can we work with these in the systems that we work in? Stamina, vitality, longevity. We've developed a curriculum, over 100 techniques and 175 pieces of neuroscientific research. So the truth is, though, that our intelligences are not really split. We split them, emotional, physical, cognitive, and others, in order to study them. But in practice, they're whole. So where there's an input in one, there is always the response in the others. Let's make no mistake about that. And coaching with physical intelligence really is the ability to work with the body, with others, to facilitate the deepest and most accelerated change, I guess, that's possible for that human being in that system that they're in today now. And the news is that the human change certainly happens more slowly and less profoundly if we leave the body out. And I know many of you will be including the body. It's natural, you'll be doing it. And as we develop this session, I want to, in a way, tool you up and let you know where you can go for other resources. So here's a few locating quotes, which I absolutely love. These are writers, neuroscientists, scientists that I think I love them, because when they write, they're just writing about things that I care deeply about. So neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, emotions are chemical imprints of a moment of time in the body. These are somatic markers. And I'm going to give you, there's other resources, excuse all the post-it notes, but this is a brilliant book if you want another resource. Antonio Damasio, Feeling and Knowing. And then cognitive scientist Guy Claxton. If you're interested in this area like me, you're geeky. Again, excuse all my notes. I've been doing my PhD recently. This is Guy Claxton's book, Intelligence in the Flesh. My book is very practical and accessible, and this goes more deeply into the philosophy, the science, and so on. Emotions are deep, bodily based constituents of every kind of human intelligence. And that's what Joe and Zoe was speaking about as well this morning, that emotions are not separate. They are part of every thought, of every action we take. We can't separate them. But you knew that. So here's our 4 elements, just so you know. If you wanted to look at this a little bit more deeply, you will know how we structure the work. Strength, confidence, inner strength, a sense of authority, perhaps mental toughness, but the ability to get oneself stable, to hold ground. Flexibility, obviously, adapting, creating, being agile. And that's what my doctorate is really looking at, and I'll be publishing it soon, about the connection between how flexible we are personally, and that means emotionally, mentally, physically, and how agile we can be, and what part in corporations, how we can help coach people to be agile as leaders in corporations. So that might be of interest as I start to publish some of the findings. And then resilience and endurance, those are built on strength and flexibility, and we define them in all kinds of ways, but a very simple definition there. So how does this start to create a language for our experience, our emotions? Well, by naming this chemistry, we call this the winning cocktail. I'm just going to flash this up so you can see the top line definitions and labels. What do each of these chemicals give? We sometimes call this 8 for great. There are over 400 neurons, neurotransmitters and hormones racing through the body and brain at any one time. There are these 8 roots, and they come together in this rather wonderful graph we call the performance pathway. And this morning, I'm guessing, well, no one's shown up naked, so I'm guessing everyone got dressed. You know, you used your muscles to put your clothes on, and you brushed your teeth or whatever it is you do in the morning, and you got going. So from stillness, you got into movement. That requires adrenaline. And at some point in the day, you'll have had a bit of a breather, and that brings acetylcholine into the system, the balancing chemical to adrenaline. But what's really important is this horizontal axis. So that's the vertical axis, adrenaline, acetylcholine. Look at what happens if you were to exist on the right-hand side of this graph with more cortisol than this other chemical, DHEA. What's happening is with being on the cortisol side, you're dragging the chemical cocktail of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, testosterone, these really important chemicals for our shifting emotional states. And your state might tend more towards anxiety, frustration, worry, with a sort of sense of fatigue when you try and rest. But then if in your life, you've got some physical intelligence, you've got some techniques, you've got, you know, the ways of working that include the body and specific ways of shifting the chemistry, you can get over to the left-hand side. DHEA is a performance-enhancing steroid. We make it naturally in the body, but many people I meet have never heard of it. And I think we need to change that because it's absolutely critical. Deep steroid that's made in the adrenal glands, and it supports our vitality, our longevity. For those of you who know about heart rate variability and so on, it's supporting the health of our heart, the connection with the brain. And it's very good, you know, if you're using this, if you're coaching someone and you want to start to work with the body and the chemistry in line with their emotional state, then you can start to have a dialogue about where they spend time and what shifts them from right to left or left to right. And what we're looking for is transformation. So more of the time is spent on the left, on the DHEA side. Okay, so as you heard earlier in the session that was all about breath, it's actually quite a big, complex area and often connected with a spiritual side that may not be everyone's cup of tea. We've tried to make breath work really, really simple, and that's where one of the foundations in the strength curriculum is some incredible research and the very simple act of pacing the breath that you can start to do right now as we're talking. You can just find a regular pacing of your breath in and out that stabilizes your emotional and mental state, brings you into connection with your body. and has these kind of potential results. And this would be over a 3-week period. Research was given earlier in the breath session about a 20% improvement in just a few minutes. Well, here we've got a system of research that's gone for 3 weeks and a potential 62% improvement in cognitive function, which people prize, don't they? Want to be alert and smart and working well in the mind. Me too. And these other benefits. And here are the technicalities. And this is for everybody to work with the breath straight away. Breathing deeply and diaphragmatically. Breathing smoothly. Breathing actively to count the in and the out breath, just with a sense of rhythm. And this is what research tells us, boosts that DHEA. I'm going to leave 30 seconds of silence now, just so you can pace your breath. Off you go. Pacing your breath if anyone's just joining. We're just taking some quiet time to find a paced breathing. Okay, so hopefully that brings that explanation, a little bit of theory, pulls together some things that you already know into a picture that we could call physical intelligence, this category of intelligence that's been largely left out or incorrectly named or made complicated, where it could and should be accessible, scientific, and there for us all. All right, so what is this? What is this? What are we looking at here? I love to see in the chat what any of the components that you can see are. Do you know what's here? I've lost my chat for the moment for some reason, but it's coming back now. What do you see? Let me just see if anyone's answering. Mitochondria is spotted, neurons, atoms, a cell. Yes, okay, great. So we're looking at the inside of a cell, and there are certain features that all cells have, and there are a few that you can notice here. One is the mitochondria, which is that purple thing on the left, the purple thing with the wiggly bits inside. And then these two things, these 2 points here, can you see hopefully you can see my cursor. These 2 things that look a bit like birds' nests on the bottom there. These are receptor sites. And we want to, by looking at this picture, ask really, so what are emotions and what happens when we get a pervading emotional state? What's really going on? So the news is that actually what emotions are in specific terms is strands of neuropeptides. And they have a charge, they have an end point. And a lot of the negative emotions are derivatives of cortisol, or the breakdown of what are called catabolic chemicals. And what happens is, and the reason that sort of emotions like disappointment or anger or frustration seem to get locked in the body, is because those neuropeptides get into the receptor sites, like getting the wrong key stuck in a lock. If that's ever happened to you, you had a key, you thought it was the right key, you put it in, but because it's not quite a good fit, you can't get it out again. So it's the charge of the end of the neuropeptide. It fits, but it gets stuck. And that's a simple way of describing the chemistry, the emotion, and why in certain areas of the body we'll feel certain emotions and why they might get stuck. And someone once said to me, an emotion takes place in a minute, a mood over hours and days, an attitude over weeks, months, and years. So this is the way we build up into patterns of behavior that are harder to shift by replaying the somatic markers, the chemistry of emotion again and again and again. And it's these neuropeptides in these receptor sites. So of course we're screaming to know, right, how can we get them out? You know, what can we do? Well, the news is that the body is largely fluid. It's largely fluid, and one of the things that we can do is to give it movement, is to literally shift the environment in the body through movement that helps to dislodge and flush out the chemistry of emotions that we don't want to hang around. Some we might want to keep for a while and augment. And actually what you can do is, you know, through your intention, you can augment emotional states like love and pride. Next time you feel love for somebody or proud of someone, notice it and then let it grow. Let the feeling augment. And that's a really great skill to have as a human being, because it lets us know that we're feeling both positive and negative emotional states. And just jumping back to posture for a moment, research tells us that actually if we're replaying a certain body posture, we're more likely, and the posture's collapsed, we're more likely to remember events negatively. So just be aware of that as we work and be curious. Now, what's interesting here is that there are certain things that we can do, as you might want to sort of hear about. Frustration, for example, where there's usually tension in the body. I don't know, could you do a physical state right now? What is frustration for you? How does it take your body? How do you bear down on the breath? What happens in your gut? What happens in your shoulders? So just replay that for a moment. Frustration, whatever that is. But you can turn that into what we call muscle firming by using your core strength and firming your muscles in a more positive way to respond to what's happening. I will not stay in frustration, but I'll use the energy of that frustration to firm my muscles. And University of Singapore and Chicago research, 2010, shows that this builds willpower, determination. We call it the chemistry of determination. So you're actually, instead of getting caught up in the cortisol aspects of frustration going round and round and round, you're actually using your muscles to say, hey, Claire, I'm going to require some strength to stand up to this. So please, muscles, as I tense you, please give me some testosterone. Please give me some adrenaline, a good bit of adrenaline to be able to respond. So it becomes an outward conscious transformation. Is that making sense to everybody? I think it's quite a really, really nice shift. How else might we create change? Are you ready for some more practical? We are going to go for this now. I want you to move with me today. So if you're willing, and again, maybe feeling a bit self-conscious, maybe you don't have the privacy to do this full out, but what I would love you to do is to stand up with me if your body is capable, able, wants to stand up. If not, you can do this seated, but easier to do standing up, getting a little bit more from it. So a big flush of the neuropeptides of emotion can come through inverting the spine and shaking out. So I will just show you. I'm going to come out of share. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things here. I'm going to stop share so I can see some of you and hopefully see some of you off camera, which would be brilliant. So I'll show you, and then I want you to go for this. Oh, good. I can see loads of people now. That's really lovely. Can you still see me? Okay. Am I still spotlit? Okay, great. So what you do here, this is the way I like to do it. Adapt this to suit your body. But what I will suggest is that getting the head below the spine, unless you have high or low blood pressure, in which case Don't do the inversion. I would just like you to find and develop a shake through the body to suit you. If you're good with dropping the head, that's great. And you might, if you have issues with the back, just take it to here. If your back feels healthy enough and likes it, you can go to the waist. If you're a little bit more of a yogi, you can hang further forwards, but you're going to let the head hang. And once you've got to where you're going to do this exercise, you breathe deeply into the back and into the belly. And on the out breath, see if you can find this kind of release. So you're shaking the shoulders, you're shaking the arms, maybe the hips go too. And maybe double arm, maybe you like the shoulder action more. Really drop the head, maybe the neck moves freely. And then when you slowly roll up through the back, if you slowly come up, please don't come up quickly because you might get dizzy, but slowly roll up through the back. And as you rebalance the head onto the spine, see what's changing. See how that feels. Sense of the fluids in the body flowing and moving. Perhaps more spacious, perhaps a change. Likewise, here, the second one movement I'd like us to do really is called the serotonin twist. And this stimulates, rings out independent neurons in the gut. And it's incredibly simple. And again, just see what happens. You could do this seated, just wrapping the arms down round you and let the arms flow and move and fly out to the sides. Breathing. And we're actually right now stimulating the neurons in the enteric brain, in the gut, saying, please release some of the serotonin that you have down there. 95% of serotonin is in the gut. And then slowly let it die down. If you had a nice go at going for it fast. And see what's happening now as you work with that serotonin release. See what's happening. Closing the eyes, tuning in. Perhaps there's a feeling of being lighter in mood. Perhaps there's a feeling of greater presence in the body. Perhaps there's a feeling of having shifted something. And what happens when we laugh or when we cry? Anybody know what happens? What's happening physiologically that makes crying or laughing feel like a release? Okay, lovely. So I find this totally fascinating. Anybody had an experience of holding on to some emotion? Like if you're feeling grieving or perhaps you've lost something or someone and you can't release it at that moment. What happens is the diaphragm, the breath, will help to suppress that emotion. And sometimes that needs to happen if it's not the moment for you to let the emotion move through you. So, but if you've just got caught up in breath patterns that are not serving you, the diaphragm will be locked around the solar plexus, the ganglion of nerves, like a spaghetti junction behind the stomach, right? Quite high in the body, behind the stomach, a feeling center, loads and loads of nerves. Traffic needs to pass through, but it doesn't. The diaphragm clasps around it. So when you say to somebody, I notice you stop breathing, this is a very significant observation. Or what's happening in your breathing now as you talk about this? It's a brilliant question. And actually, once the breath starts, what happens is the solar plexus starts to release. So then if you imagine laughing or crying, the solar plexus is getting a really good massage. It's kind of being squeezed around and moved. And so it enervates the solar plexus so we can feel more. Now, don't you think that's just a beautiful piece of physiology? It makes sense of why breath matters. Laughing, crying, both do the same. Now, if you want to take a photograph of this, you can. At the beginning of our course for coaches, we invite cohort members to, and there are a few here, familiar faces who will know this exercise, to tell a story of your body. And if I was going to ask you now to just tell a story of your body, something that's happened that involves your body, the body will be a teacher in a certain way. And so you can ask that question. You're in relationship with your body. And I love these final questions. When's your body been there for you? I'm asking you that now. You might like to note it down. When in your life has your body been there for you? And when have you been there for your body? There's masses of research. It's wonderful. Spontaneous free movement enhances our capacity for divergent thinking. Isn't that cool? It's not all about giving directive or offering interventions that create discretion. But for example, I'm just working on this NOW, an acronym, which is about noticing changes, opening the weave, and working with the body through asking questions. So that's another tool you could start using straight away. All kinds of amazing research here. Paul Zack, we're working with in Dubai in a few months' time. He's got some cool tech, an app, and works with immersion, trust and purpose, oxytocin and dopamine. How the oxytocin and dopamine work together to give some of these incredible statistics. He's tested the levels of oxytocin and dopamine in hundreds of thousands of subjects all over the world. Yeah, I'm going to stop now.
Sarah, were you talking to slides then? Somebody was just asking in the chat.
Oh gosh. I was. Thank you. Let me just quickly share the slides because I was talking to my own slides, but I didn't share them with you. Here we go. So I'll just show you them. Here you go. I was talking to slides. You saw that one. There's the story of your body, which I didn't show you. Sorry. Thank you for pointing that out, Joe. I feel so embarrassed. Sorry about that. My share abilities left me for the day.
We'll have it in the recording now so we can all go back.
Cool.
Registered, we'll have the recordings of all this.
So there's the story of your body. Really nice exercise. Come to the next session. And can you tell me a story of your body just in 2 minutes? We'll have many stories. And then now, notice changes. Open the weave of what that moment feels like. Work with the body. Some prompts there for you. And then I was talking about some of the amazing research that's out there, how free movement enhances our capacity for divergent thinking, how narrowing attention on the goal increases focus and goal-relevant action, how this is the Paul Zack work I was mentioning, these incredible statistics by measuring the change in levels of oxytocin and dopamine in hundreds of thousands of people in organizations all over the world. And his book, The Trust Factor, is excellent. And we're working with him on his emergent technology with some leaders coming up soon. I'm not going to show you that little film, but I'm going to take some questions. Leave us with the lovely cell picture, which I think is amazing. And there's a QR code and also the usual links there if you want to connect with me and find out more about Coach with PI. So I reckon we've got 5 minutes for questions, which is not bad for me.
Thank you, Claire. There is a question from Mary. Do you blend in research around cold water immersion.
Yeah, it's the story is around inflammation. Who is that from?
Mary Talbot.
Mary, yeah. The stories around inflammation and how it's extremely difficult to feel emotionally and mentally stable and free if the inner environment is inflamed, which means that cortisol levels have been too high for too long, and there's an acidic environment in the body. The body should be very slightly alkali, all except the stomach. And cold water swimming, cold water immersion is one brilliant way to get your inflammation down. 2 minutes a day, they say, and I try to do that, and I actually love it now. Hated it at first, but hope that answers your question, Mary.
There's another question here, which is, what are your thoughts on alexithymia? Have I pronounced that correctly?
I don't know about that. Let me just look at the spelling. You'll have to pop in the chat what that is.
AP, do you want to take that off mute?
Sorry?
Yes, but then you're going to have me know how to pronounce it. And it's a word that I've always read. So alexithymia, the idea that especially in autistic people can't always put into words or understand what they're feeling, having trouble recognizing emotion.
Got it. Yes. So, I mean, I'm doing a lot of work. We do a lot of work around interoception. And my doctorate is particularly looking at the serotonergic system and how important that is for interoception. And so we have had a lot of coaches who are either neurodiverse or interested in neurodiversity come to our program and really be particularly interested in the art of interoception, how it can be improved. So I hadn't come across that term before, but that's certainly what we're doing to get that internal monitoring and create the chemistry of that, which is a lot to do with serotonin. Some very exciting research on that at the moment. Does that help, Kate?
Yeah, I just always get curious when people who know a lot about emotions, like their side on it. And I appreciate the openness. I am autistic, I am ADHD, so I appreciate like the openness around that in general.
Yeah, it's very important.
Innie's also building on that with her question. What's your thoughts about education settings that limit neurodivergent children who need movement to release and harness their divergence?
Oh, I think they shouldn't. I think we should be involving movement for all children, actually, not only neurodiverse children. I think there's some amazing new research which is around the somatocortical action network, it's called. And what's happened recently, and this is really relevant for how movement helps us learn and how we can use movement units to help change state. Because what they discovered was that there's a neuron, mystery neurons were right next to the motor neurons in the brain, mystery neurons, and nobody knew what they did. And actually, it turns out that they're in a network called the SCAN network, which makes sense of what's happening is that we're planning to use movement intentionally for certain change of state. And our whole soma knows it, because not only are those mystery neurons next to the motor neurons talking to them, but they're all talking to each other. So it makes sense. It's another part of the picture of the neuroscience of the soma. So
thank you so much, Claire. There's a lot of
using movement. Yeah.
for you here today. Brilliant session. Thank you so much for the information, for the physicality of the session. You've obviously shared information if people want to find out more from you. Sorry if we haven't had time to answer your question. I know there was a question there we didn't have time for. Please reach out to Claire
Yes.
outside of the session to connect with her. I always love my interactions with you, Claire, and thank you so much for your time and consideration in today's session.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks, everybody.
I'm going to end the session now, everyone. So if you're joining the next session, please log in again and we'll let you into the next session. Thank you so much, Claire. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.